got to love it here in the city. Our heart beats stronger.
Back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome to the Landing Strip with Nick Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Welcome back to the Landing Strip as the Winnipeg Jets play one of those Nick Lynham perfect games as the tank continues rolling along. And it's official, folks. The Winnipeg Jets leave the 2025 calendar year as the first team in NHL history, I believe, to go from first last year to dead last in the NHL at New Year's Eve. This time last year, we were talking about first place team. What a 12 months. And I got to say, I know I haven't had the easiest 2025, but at least I didn't spend my 2025 running a President's Trophy operation into the depths of the NHL. That is quite the feat. It's impressive in its own right. We're going to do this show a little bit different, folks. We're going to talk about the game a little bit, and then we're going to go through the Winnipeg Jets organization and discuss trade ideas, discuss potential firings, discuss what you want to see the Winnipeg Jets change in the year of 2026. Let's try and find some pathways out of the depths of hell together. That's what today's show is going to be all about. But I need my boy Mikey in here too. How you doing, Mikey?
There's only one way we can start these shows lately. 7 straight times, and it's going to keep rolling. Let's hit the tank.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop. We'll soon be here.
We get closer and closer to that draft every day. It'll soon be here. That tank rolls on, baby.
It does. It does. Let's start off the show off the tank clip. Let's hand out Frosty's tank award right off the bat. What was the biggest play that stood out to you in the chat that helped push this tank along on this night? Mikey, start it off.
Anybody that's been listening to the show knows I am a big proponent in own goals. They should be strapped as like a scarlet letter to the player who puts it in, like it's done in soccer. And I'm going to give an own goal tankathon award to Luke Schenn tonight. Way to go, buddy. Way to get yourself right in the middle of the play, behind the goaltender, pushing the puck over the line. Couldn't have done it without you. Appleton to Schenn for the goal there. That's some Winnipeg Jets magic. So Luke Schenn with the wonderful own goal to help keep the tank alive tonight.
Yeah, I see Frosty agrees with you, but you picked what I would call the wrong offender on that play. And my tank award of the night is going to Dylan DeMello. Before that whole play even happens, he turns it over up the middle of the ice, then tries to make up for it, completely whiffs. We get a 2-on-1 the other way with Comfort and Appleton. And this whole sequence was honestly about experiencing Winnipeg Jets hockey this year. Mason Appleton scores the game-winning goal on that play, and he shoots it towards the net. It goes off Shannon in, but Dylan DeMello has to wear the goat horns on that play, and there's been a ton of them for Mr. DeMello this season. That ship continues going the wrong direction, and I see a lot of the YouTube chat agrees with me here. Gilbert Marion says DeMello. Neil DeBeck says DeMello getting burned for a goal against. Matt Rothen's tank award goes to DeMello on the second goal. 0 goes to Dylan DeMello for being terrible. And Caitlin Doucette goes to Dylan DeMello for whipping and blaming his stick. That was tonight's tank award of the night from me. Leaving this one, what is your biggest takeaway
That
heading into 2026?
The Winnipeg Jets just continue to trip over their own dick. it's kind of impressive how they'll keep finding these different ways to come out and give the game up. They can put together some decent stretches. They can put together, a 5-minute run of some good pressure, and then just have an absolute brain fart blow up moment where they end up having to fish the puck out of their own net. It honestly, like you said at the beginning of the show, it's impressive how, they've taken the whole process to the point of now being in last place after being the number 1 team in the National Hockey League, but also at a more, micro level, the in-game accomplishments of being able to throw it away over and over again each game. It honestly takes more work to do this than I think to just win the occasional game right now. So it's the effort is not going to be questioned. That's for sure. They are working hard, whether it's to win or to lose. They are working hard at it.
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway was, unfortunately, this game was over as soon as the Mason Appleton goal went in. The Jets put up a fine push on their behalf for the back 40. But the first period was, again, an absolute train wreck. And this team has not won a single game that they've trailed with double digits. Or by 2 goals or more, sorry. So this game, you could watch it and figure it was over. There were stretches again from them, but they didn't feel all that dangerous. And then they get one from the Stanimal, who continues to up his trade value with his 7th of the year, leading the way in secondary scoring. On one, John Gibson definitely wants back. You see Gustav Nyquist get robbed backdoor with it net empty, and the team fails to win for the 7th game in a row. What I watched tonight, it just, even when they're competitive, they don't feel in it offensively.
Yep.
I'm at the acceptance stage. This team, you watch them, they're cooked. As constructed, they're finishing bottom 5. I'm not even worried about a run at this point. They can't do it. You could tell the levels difference in this one.
Yeah, this was not for the camp of people who are still thinking the Jets are going to turn it around, the Jets are going to turn it on, that this is just a weird slump. I don't know how you can come out of these last few games, especially because they have played better. They have had a better effort the last 2 before tonight, and they still can't find ways to put 2 points on the board, to play a full 60-minute game. It's not there. As presently constructed, this team is just not there. It's not 1 player away. It's not even really 2 players away. This is a structural issue at the moment with the way the roster is constructed. You have a bunch of puzzle pieces that don't fit together. You don't have enough talent in the spots where you need the talent, and you don't have the creativity or the flexibility to even try to make, a little more out of a little less, to try to make the chicken salad out of chicken shit, right? We've seen teams with lesser talent levels, put it together, find ways to play a system that works for them, to maximize their impact. And this just isn't that, right? This is not that Winnipeg Jets team. They don't have that level of creativity, whether it's behind the bench or up in the management office, to pull themselves out of this right now. At least I don't think so.
Here's quite the stat. Thanks to Noah Lafort over on YouTube, the Avs have put up the same amount of goals in the first 4:39 of tonight's game as the Jets have had in their last 8 periods.
Yep. And again, those 8 periods are the best 8 periods of Jets hockey. You know what I mean? Or 9 periods, however you want to look at it, right? With the 2 games before tonight, it's, yeah. Even when they're pulling, all in the same direction, they're doing everything they can. They are trying. We saw them try these last couple games before tonight, and it's still not enough. The way the roster is currently built, they're just not good enough to be competing for a wild card spot, never mind a top spot in our division or a deep playoff run like we were told.
Yeah, not ideal. Let's quickly discuss. We got the Team Canada Olympic roster. Josh Morrissey in, Mark Scheifele out. What was your thoughts when you saw the Team Canada roster today? Was Mark Scheifele a snub? Where you at with Team Canada today?
Well, the biggest snub actually is Evan Bouchard, who I was told was going to be an absolute lock over the French player Josh Morrissey last game. No, but yeah, it's no secret I've been on the Scheifele going to the Olympics camp for the vast majority of the season. I thought the bulk amount of just sheer points and his play was enough, especially this year where to start the season, even though the results weren't coming for the team overall, Scheifele was playing decently well. Just as a 200-foot game, he had been fairly good in most of the run leading up to this last little bit. So I was pretty upset for him, just as a person, right? That's what he wanted. I'm also real worried about how that's going to affect his game going forward. He's not the Kyle Connor type of player who takes the rejection as a Michael Jordan slight of, oh, you've pissed me off, now I'm gonna go kind of beast mode on you. We've seen Scheifele kind of sulk a little bit more when things don't go his way. And I'm worried that that's going to start creeping into the game a little bit. I know some people tonight have already made comments about, Scheifele didn't get on there, and look, tonight he was already sluggish and already this and that. So I'm a little bit worried in that aspect on what that's going to do to his psyche and his game going forward. Am I shocked that he's not on the team? No, we knew he was going to be a fringe player. We knew that if he was going to make it, it wasn't probably going to be a starter right off the hop. But there are still some players on there where, I kind of scratch my head a little bit on the choice. But really the biggest thing that kind of came out of today for me was the tea leaves kind of saying that they weren't even really considering Scheifele. He wasn't even in their final list of cut downs in their plans whatsoever. This was more so just the fact that he's been, playing at such a high offensive level for so long. I think I saw the stat today. He's the 6th highest scoring Canadian over the last 10 years. In the National Hockey League. Like, that's huge. That's a big accomplishment. And to see him not there is, a little bit head scratching in some aspects. But then when you see some of the other guys who also didn't make it on, you start going, yeah, there's a lot of guys to kind of choose from. But the thing I'm most worried about is his play going forward. And the biggest shock was the fact that he wasn't even like a final cut.
Yeah, over on YouTube, the Silver Scrub says putting Horvat over 55 is bull. Matt Hyman wasn't surprised. The Silver Scrub also said, I get leaving him off, but to put someone like Horvat on instead of is crazy. Neil DeBeck says, rumor is they invited him, and he asked if he could bring KFC with him. They said no, so he declined. Gilbert Marion says, love Scheifele, but he's not elite. Over on Twitch, I see Donnie Fester has joined the chat, and he says, Donnie here, can't believe the Scheif snub for the Olympics. Gilbert Marion says, love Scheifele, but he's not elite. And I want to, as we start getting into the roster, this is a point we're going to have to really dive into with where this team's at. Parmaline says, what hurt Scheifele is the fact that he's only put up all those stats playing with one guy. He needs a security blanket. He hasn't shown he can generate chemistry and produce with other players. Blake G says, I'm not upset Scheifele being left off. Seemed like 50-50, but the management team just picked their guys with Cooper and Armstrong.
Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like as well, right? It just feels like they picked their guys, and he was always, kind of a fringe player. I did think he was going to sneak in there as one of those, like, 14th forward kind of things.
I think it's no secret. I've been a skeptic on Mark Scheifele being that level of player for some time. Thought the Four Nations snub was proper. I do think Mark Scheifele was snubbed from Team Canada for the first time in my life. The level we've seen him play at, and genuinely put in an effort defensively over the last 12 months since getting cut from Four Nations has been the best level player that he's been at. We're talking about a guy pacing over 100 points this year. I'm sorry. I made the Tom Wilson case and why I don't think he belongs at the IIHF version of the tournament.
Yep.
I see him better as a guy like Cirelli, who I know is going to be a penalty killer for the team.
Yep.
I had kind of mentioned a few weeks ago, I thought Horvat was kind of building the case. He's been such a big driver for an Islanders team that's doing a lot better than the Winnipeg Jets right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to consider is how many guys do you want to pull off a team that's currently in 32nd place?
Yep.
I mean, on the elite conversation with Gilbert Marion, like there's something to the fact that the Winnipeg Jets' best players are playing as well as they are, and they're still in the basement of the NHL. Like that doesn't happen with the truly elite guys in this league. Parmaline says, no way in hell should Point have made it. He was automatically a lock after being one of the original 6
Yep.
after last year. So he had to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think Mark Scheifele was a snub. I think how he reacts to it is going to be super interesting. I think, my take is I do think, especially with where things have gone this year, we're talking about a team that's got, one win in their last 10, 3 wins in their last 19 games now,
Yep.
that I could see his play tailing off. I mean, we've seen it before at the end of Paul Maurice and during the Dave Lowry days.
Yep.
I thought tonight was a real tough response from him after being cut. So something to kind of monitor as things go on. But that'll be good for the team tank. So we'll see where that goes. Really happy for Josh Morrissey. That was never in doubt.
Yep.
It sounds like Devin Tays may need to get replaced as his wife is due right around the time of the tournament.
Oh, wow.
So I would love to see if that happens, if we see some Josh Morrissey, Cale McCarr minutes this year at the Olympics.
That would be interesting. That would be fun to watch.
Right? Going from there, Matthew Hyman asked, could Salbrini play at 5 Olympics? Certainly it's possible the way he looks early on in his career.
Yeah. If
I
the
wouldn't
NHL
even
players
put-
keep going.
Yeah, I wouldn't even write off the idea Crosby goes to another one the way he's still going at his age and the way he's
God.
talking.
100 years old, that man, he's still going to be going out there.
Yeah, that's where we're at with the Olympics. Some other stuff has gotten interesting. As we've talked about, Mike McIntyre has been the one guy on the scene with the free press. Him and Ken Weave have been sent to games. And I thought Mike McIntyre put out a really interesting article this week interviewing Bruce Boudreau. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, caught a little bit of that.
He continues to be a man after my heart. I've always been a big Bruce guy. To see him publicly talking about all the things going wrong and how all options should be on the table, keep trying everything until something works. He talked about how dire it is to play in the NHL with one line and how easy that is to match up against, how hard it is to get out of those holes, how they should be splitting up the top guys. And we saw Sportsnet talking about that again tonight. This continues to be abnormal for the NHL's sake, to the point we're getting excited when Kyle Connor got on for an early line change to spend some time with Adam Lowry. And we're like, holy shit, they might have done it.
It
But
broke
was
the
just,
internet.
yeah, it was just a change in the play.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see guys like that. Even his take on Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'm surprised a little bit. Said Boudreau, Kevin Cheveldayoff is one of the most patient GMs ever, right? He doesn't make any rash moves, but they're at the stage where they've got to start winning. I think something needs to jumpstart this team. What'd you think of Boudreau weighing in on the Winnipeg Jets situation? And was he softly putting his name out there as the humor jumper cable?
You know, I was that was the one of the things that popped into my mind at first was, oh, somebody's laying out their resume and plan as to why they should be the replacement here in Winnipeg. Until he shot himself in the foot by saying that he would break up the top line, because we know that's not allowed. We know they're not going to hire a coach that's going to come in and advocate for that. You've got to be willing to toe the line. You have to do things the true North way. That's been very evident from all of their hirings right from Jump Street. It's why Tross isn't here. It's why a lot of other
That's
guys.
not why Tross isn't here.
well, not him specifically, but it's it's the Jets like to do things their way, and I don't. I think Bruce shot himself in the foot with that one, because everything he was saying was dead on. It's when you're being noticed like this on the national stage, and it's being talked about by not just media people, not just analysts, but by the former coaches, former guys that have been at the top of the league. I don't know how you keep ignoring that over and over again, right? At some point, you would think management would have to see that and go, okay, maybe it's not just the fans who are complaining about something, but yeah, I loved it. I loved hearing it from Bruce. I've always been a big Boudreau fan, as long as you. So
I do got to correct Tony Valeri, who says Paul Mo did it. Pimo did not. They were stuck in the Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler cycle the entire Palmer years.
Yep.
Bonus was the first one to do it with PLD and Connor.
Yep.
Then Pimo didn't. We're not giving Pimo credit for that shit. He's part of the reason they got hampered.
why
into
we're in this place.
Yeah. it was kind of funny. As soon as I read the article, I was like, God, Bruce sounds like the guy they need here. You want to talk about a desperation hire. But Ray still checked the old Google and remembered he was 70 years old. But it was interesting to see someone that's been as successful as him kind of talking about a lot of the same things we've been talking about for what feels like 2 months now.
Yep.
And the org is still not ready to do it. So what we're going to transition into here for today's From Financial Faceoff. If you were the GM of the Winnipeg Jets, what's your first move in 2026? We want to hear from you in the chat, and we're going to pivot from this into diving through the entire organization, top to bottom, talking about each situation, and the reality check we are in here.
Let's hit it. Right on.
All right, so heading into 2026, you wake up tomorrow, you have the keys to the franchise. What's the first thing you're doing? Mikey, what is your From Financial Face-Off on this night with that question in mind?
Well, I'm replacing myself. I'm not the GM in this situation. I'm Mark Chipman. I'm gonna be the owner. Because I'm hiring a president of hockey operations, a real president of hockey operations, to come in and change the process with this management group. Because I don't think there is a single roster move that I can come up with that is going to change the fortunes of this team in a long-term, meaningful way. I think we are stuck in a rut in terms of how things have kind of built up to this point. And I don't trust the current management group to get us out of the problem that they themselves created. I need an outside voice. I need an outside pair of eyes. I need somebody to come in, take a look at what we have that's good, what's bad, and really break it down to the studs and reshape it, because I don't see the solution being a single move that I can come up with personally, and I don't trust this management group to do it. So my biggest wish, my biggest gift for the fortunes of the Winnipeg Jets was to have a real president of hockey ops come in, set the tone, set the process, keep the owner in his owner's box, go sign your checks, and let the hockey people make hockey decisions.
Nicely thought out answer. I'm going to dive into the chat and we will bounce around some of these ideas. HH Living Loco says, if I'm Chevy, I'm going to the cabin and fishing until the summer. Why does it only have to be in the summer? Why can't it be a permanent thing? Come on. Let's get a bit more creative here.
That's right.
Over on YouTube, Matt Rothman's From Financial Face-Off is, if I'm the GM, I'm sacking myself in shame. Should be what's happening. It's the only way a move's happening in Winnipeg, with Mark Chipman still in a coma watching his franchise head off the cliff. Gilbert Marion says dump a ton at the trade deadline as his From Financial Face-Off. Noah Lafort says you have to be capitalizing on Logan Stanley's value, minimum second round return. That has to be the trade. That's the other thing. Like, you cannot have this management group who's been in love with a player more than any management group in the history of the NHL get to decide whether he gets traded or extended in the situation you currently find yourself in.
Yep.
John Chan, I like this, says he would wake up and sack the current scouting and development team. I think there's a big conversation that needs to be had there and why this team is where it is right now. Parmaline's first move would be to Chevy is relieved of his duties. Blake G from Financial Faceoff is, if I was a GM of the Jets, I'd probably fill up the cooler, gas up the car, and head out to the lake. See you in 15 years. The Silver Scrubs from Financial Faceoff is trading Logan Stanley for a first plus because some team will go crazy for the next coming of Bobby Orr. This is where we're at, where Bodie Clegg has finally seen the light and says, to be honest, I'm actually cheering for the Jets to lose now. I want McKenna. Yeah. We leave the year of 2025, went from a team we were hoping could go on a deep run to everybody actively hoping they lose nightly.
Yep. We're just
impressive feat.
Oh yeah, no, we're just vibing for Verhoff now. We're waiting on this draft, which is insane. When this was the President's Trophy winning team from a year ago, we were told this was a 5-year, 10-year window. This is going to be the dominance of the Winnipeg Jets, and here we are begging for a top 3 pick.
Caitlin Doucette's from Financial Faceoff is call everyone and take what you can on guys like Nyquist, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, and Iafallo. John Chan says, what happened to the team draft and development strategy that led to such a bare cupboard? Let's get into that as we go through the org here. Neil DeBeck says, Stanley, Perfetti, Iafallo, Nyquist, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, fire sale, all must go. Pomerlane says, I don't want this current management group and scouting team handling the development of any new draft picks. So if I woke up tomorrow and I'm the GM of the Winnipeg Jets, and I'm in a desperate state right now. Like, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff right now,
Yep.
Arniel's not making it past this week. I don't think it's the right way to go, but something's going to break here at some point. You saw the frustrations boiling over on the ice today. I think that's what's happening next. But if you ask me honestly, if I was Mark Shipman, Kevin Cheveldayoff's backing up the office tomorrow. Mark Hillier is backing up the office. And I'm spending the back half of the next few months interviewing external candidates and getting some new eyes on this immediately. We'll discuss names as the rest of the season goes on. That's something I have to dive more into. But the real you got to come to the realization. The Winnipeg Jets have come full circle from year one when this team came back to Winnipeg from Atlanta. They are the Atlanta Thrashers, but older. You can't have the architect that drove this thing into the ground be the one who's been obsessed with it a lot, trying to fight his way out of this and making the type of moves that are going to be needed. So for me, a coaching change is just another Winnipeg Jets shuffling of the deck chairs.
Yep.
I need the architect out of here ASAP.
And like, how many GMs get to hire and fire 5 head coaches in the National Hockey League? Like that's insane. 15 years, 5 head coaches, and no question whatsoever on whether or not he should ever be in the hot seat from the owner. It's absolutely bananas. You don't see it anywhere else. And I don't mean that in a positive, like, oh my God, this is the only, like, you don't see that done anywhere because it's not a good way to run a professional sports team. I'm just baffled that we're still at this spot and we have absolutely no light down the end of the tunnel of a change in management group.
Yeah, a couple in the chat say Zero Ghost 8. The Normandy you could trade Kyle Connor for, and the Silver Crab says technically you could still trade Connor, right? He doesn't have a no move until next year when the exception kicks in. The no move clause was backdated into this year, it looks like, according to Puckpedia.
Yep.
Tony Valeri says the record is way worse and the team is playing worse. I still don't think we've seen the darkest stretch yet when it comes to offense with this team, and that's saying something. There's going to be a time when the top guys go on a lengthy slump, and I guess maybe we're in it right now, as this is, 2 games in a row without a goal from the big dogs. But Blake G says, on a serious note, my From Financial Faceoff is to blow this up as quick as possible. You got to move on from 55 in the core. It'll hurt, but you know you can't win with this core and get any value you can and kickstart. Let's start going through the org. I want to hear from the chat. I want to hear from you, Mikey. Let's start up at the very top. Should Kevin Cheveldayoff continue being the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets moving into 2026?
No. At the end of the day, no. There's no reason for it. We've had 15 years of performance. We've had 15 years of data points. We know what Chevy's good at. We know what Chevy's bad at. We know where the strength and everything lies. Unfortunately, I don't think there is enough there to say that he's the answer on how the Jets can right the ship. When again, the whole reason they are in this spot is because of the 2 years that he's actually tried to be proactive in the market and just not able to identify the real holes where in the roster, not able to identify really what was going well for the team. He's reactionary and has come out okay on a few of those, and we will give him the flowers on those every time. But when it comes to actually being the one to sit down, create the plan, put it into action, he's just not the guy. The Jets have talked, again, a big game about experience when it comes to on the ice, but they have absolutely no experience in that management group on building a winning team, building a winning roster, putting a roster over. They just don't have that, and I don't trust this management group to get them out of the problem they put themselves in. So, plain and simple, no, he should not be the GM going forward.
Looks like it's going to be unanimous on that one on this night. The Silver Scrub calls it the easiest let go of all time. Caitlin Doucette says no. Matt Rothman says not a chance. Chase Gurniak says no. Gilbert Marion says absolutely not. Pomerlane says no way in hell. Matt Rothman says 15 years, 4 playoff series wins, in which one came with 1.6 seconds left and one was in the bubble, isn't good enough. Over on Twitch, Mr. Cramping Canadian says, if they aren't moving guys at the deadline, this is going to be a massive fail. I don't even trust Chevy/management to make the correct choice at first overall, even if the Jets get it. Quite telling about the state of the trust of the management group in Winnipeg, and well earned, given the product we're forced to watch every single night right now. Zero Ghost 8 says, you guys got to stop talking about the president of hockey ops and getting rid of Chevy. You know when they move him out of GM, it's into president of ops. You're manifesting this. Hey, even at this point, that's a change I'll take.
Yeah, even as a half measure, if they brought in somebody from the outside to be the actual GM, to do that day-to-day work, who has connections in the league, hopefully somebody from a program that's, had to put a winner over the top before would be nice, because they love experience. I would be fine with that even as a half measure if it just brings in somebody from the outside who has some autonomy to make those type of changes.
I got to be honest. I'm eyeing something totally different for myself in a GM.
What do you want to do?
I don't see any GM being able to put this over. I think we keep lying to ourselves that this core is ever going to get over. I'm looking for the next up-and-coming guy that's going to change how this organization fundamentally operates top to bottom. We know all the problems exist in Winnipeg, and they can't be excuses. You're going to have to build a Winnipeg model, similar to how Carolina approaches things. I don't want a guy that's done it before to come in here and pretend he can get it done, because it's not going to be possible. I want someone that's going to fundamentally change how the Winnipeg Jets see an NHL organization, see assets, see value, and probably aren't as loyal and a bit more ballsy.
That's we're definitely in agreement on that portion of it. They need somebody to come in, who's ballsy and going to make the big changes.
As the Silver Scrub says, the analytics guy in Carolina is what I want. And he said, you beat me to it, damn. Yeah.
Yep.
The next Eric Tulsky, or someone that's willing to come up here that has a fresh set of ideas on what a National Hockey League organization really is in 2025, or I guess 2026 moving forward here.
Yep.
Next spot. Is there anyone in management type roles that should be going next? I want a brand new amateur scouting director.
Yep.
Ever since the switchover, 3 NHL players, one of them being Logan Stanley, one of them being a struggling Cole Perfetti, and one being Dylan Sandberg in the last 10 years.
Yep.
That is simply not good enough for an organization that has told us, it's very publicly said, that they're dependent on draft and development. And that part of the organization has had a decade of not getting it done that has really brought this here. I need that piece gone too.
Yep.
If I'm going to have some trust in where this is going.
100%. It's time to fire the amateur scouting group, especially at the top of it, into the sun. Also, the pro scouting department, I'm going to want a real serious review on. They haven't been able to identify a professional NHL defenseman the entire time. In 15 fucking years, this shit has driven me crazy. So I want that addressed so much because they just have no idea whatsoever when it comes to trying to address the holes on the back end at the pro level. So yeah, amateur and pro, I want a big review.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely necessary. Matt Rothman says the big issue is Chevy extended pretty much everyone, and now when their contracts end, they have no value to move. It's one thing with 37.55, but the others, like 4, 17, and even 81, is very risky. Turd Ferguson points out a GM can accept the realities of a Winnipeg market and find ways to work within it instead of leaning on it as a crutch.
Yes.
And that's the big thing. Instead of having an excuse-driven organization, let's have one motivated to do something big in the city of Winnipeg and change the perception of what things do here. Someone that could sell what they're actually building. The only people Kevin Cheveldayoff is able to sell is the guys that have been here that have been put on a pedestal. I can't talk tonight. Jesus Christ. So, something to think about.
Yeah, like you said earlier, you can sell wins or you can sell hope. Right now, they are not anywhere near providing either of those two things.
Mr. Crampton Canadian says, that's a good point. Is the issue that we aren't seeing many NHL-ready prospects an issue from how they are developed in the Moose system? You got to be willing to tear it all down. You know what? If the chat's ready for a house cleaning, I'm ready for a house cleaning. Caitlin Doucette says the Moose entire coach and staff and management needs to go as well. Strip it down. I don't even care.
Yep.
Let's go. Everybody.
When
Let's get a fresh new group in here. I don't even care.
when you have multiple prospects come out and publicly say there is no path for me to make the NHL without a bunch of guys ahead of me getting hurt, and all of those guys ahead of them are all 30-plus-year-old, a lot of them scrubs at this point. Like, it's bananas. Again, that's not to say the kids are going to come up and fix all the issues and they're going to win the games and da-da-da. But I'm just saying that if we're talking about the draft and develop thing, which is the Jets, they're a draft and develop team. We've been heard that for 15 fucking years now. If you've got your prospects publicly complaining they see no path to even make the team at any point, that's a draft and development problem. That is an absolute issue that you can't be a successful group, who prides themselves on that, and also at the same time leave no path for those guys to actually develop.
I think also the truth is actually kind of darker, and why this house cleaning needs to happen. We are currently being told by the organization themselves that the players that they've drafted and developed aren't good enough to play on the 32nd ranked team in the NHL.
Yep.
Think about that for a second from that perspective. The org is telling us that they have not been able to draft and develop better players than what we're seeing at the NHL level. That should be an even bigger concern.
Right. And
of trusting this group.
Mike McIntyre a couple days ago after the game posted that he asked Scott Arniel, about about bringing up Manitoba Moose players. Arniel's answer was that he's focused, or my job is to coach what I have here. So you're not even thinking about it. You're not even there's no discussion going on with your GM. There's no the fact that we're not even entertaining the idea of it in a absolutely destructive season, because you don't want to upset veterans for getting waived. You don't want to embarrass somebody, whatever it is bananas and not how you run a professional sports team.
Yeah. So we're ready to clean house?
Yep.
There's only one more spot to go outside of the roster. Where is everyone at on Scott Arniel moving forward with the Winnipeg Jets?
This is a tough one. I feel like a teenager who's off and on again with their girlfriend with how I feel about Scott Arniel. I was so against the hiring when it was first announced that he was going to be taking over full time. I was getting flashbacks of Columbus in 2011, 2012. I didn't think it was going to be a good fit. Then we had the season that we had last year, and I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it never really did. They kept kind of trugging along. The system looked pretty good. The special teams were great. It looked like, okay, maybe it's going in the right direction. Maybe this is a guy who's kind of learned from, the negative experiences he's had in the past. And then when you get to this season and you look at everything that's gone on, we've talked a lot about how this is a roster construction issue more so than maybe a roster deployment issue. Outside of the one big problem that we've pointed at and talked about ad nauseum, which is the breakup of that top line, that pairing there. I guess I kind of go back and forth on it because on one hand, do I expect him to be the one to say too fucking bad. You're playing a part. I'm the head coach. You play on this line. You play on this line. You don't run the team. On some level, yeah, I would kind of like that, right? For somebody to kind of take charge in that aspect. But also, this is something coming from above him as well. So if he goes and does that, does he, get canned anyways? It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situations, right? If he goes out and makes the big stink or publicly says, I'm not allowed to break those guys up because the GM is controlling or the owner is controlling my roster decisions, that looks terrible and you're going to get fired. But if you keep chugging along like this, not doing it, ignoring it, almost making fun of the people kind of asking for it with some of the comments that have come out and stuff like that, yeah, you may keep your job for this season, but eventually you're probably still going to be the scapegoat. You're probably still going to get canned because you're the last team in the fucking National Hockey League. And then your reputation with the rest of the league probably also takes a hit at that point. So, yeah, on one hand, I kind of wish there was a little bit more bite to Scott Arniel, a little bit more, of having that ability to stand up to this ridiculous situation that, again, is completely abnormal, doesn't happen anywhere else. But do I expect it out of the guy who got locked out of his locker room the last time he was a head coach? No, I don't. So would I be absolutely crushed and destroyed if he's relieved of his duties and let go as the head coach? No. Do I think he's the biggest problem with the Jets roster and their position right now? No. So I'm kind of on the fence with it a little bit, but you could probably sell me on keeping him around with a new GM. But if you're going to be keeping the GM, then I think you have to change. You can't fire 22 guys on the ice or 22 guys in the locker room, but you can fire the head coach.
I do ultimately think he's going to be the scapegoat. And I think it's safe to say our chat is looking at this really well, scrolling through things. So we're going to dive there right away here after I give my take. I've been throwing up the human shield for Scott Arniel all year. I would keep him in-house with a new management group, kind of getting to oversee what happens there. And then if I'm trusting a new management group in here to come in here with the anonymity to make changes, I would kind of give them the freedom to make that choice. But I don't think Scott Arniel deserves to get canned. You see this team is still providing an effort for him. This team is trying to play up to the system. They have their moments. It is so clear that this isn't a coaching problem. This is a foundational roster construction problem. I genuinely do think Scott Arniel has a good handle of what's going on here. I don't think he has the influence to do the big thing, and that's another big reason the top of the org needs to be blown up, because as Parmaline had said, this is not a country club. This is supposed to be a professional National Hockey League organization. I would be keeping, despite the house cleaning above him, I'd be keeping Scotty Arniel around and seeing what happens with him under a new vision. I think at worst, if this is going backwards anyways, he's a good ambassador in this market. I do think he genuinely has a good handle of things. We've seen that his system works, though. Was it a carryover bones? We'll get into some of that in the chat. But for me, I'm not making him walk the plank.
Yeah, the argument on whether or not it's carryover, even if it is, I still think he can run that system. If you give him the horses, we saw that system can be very effective. So like I said, I'm willing to give him a shot under a new GM who's going to be a bit more creative with the players that he's going to be able to give Scott Arniel. But we've seen it so often that the coach ends up being the scapegoat for the GM. But again, I go back to how many NHL GMs get to hire and fire 5 head coaches. It doesn't happen, and it's crazy that's kind of where we're at next.
Yeah, a couple more feathers in Scott Arniel's cap, in my opinion. The assistants that he brought in weren't necessarily just buddies last year.
Yep.
And we saw the Winnipeg Jets perform very well in every aspect of the game. So it tells me that he was at least competent in making those hires. We've heard him really start to push the org to incorporate analytics into decision-making. I think that's a credit to him. I think he's just very much handcuffed in his spot.
No.
But diving into the chat, let's dive into some of the thoughts on old Scotty Arniel. Neil Dubeck pointed out the quote you were talking about was a case of Arniel saying he had no control over his roster. Matt Rothman says, Arniel, I think, needs to go even if it isn't all his fault. T. Kona wants to bring in the Hunters to clean up this organization.
That's right.
Caitlin Doucette really nails what I was trying to get at with the management side of it, saying, the thing is, I don't think Lambert and Chibikov, for example, are good enough. But the fact that we don't have a single forward prospect who is a clear upgrade over Tanner Pearson is damning. Really think about that, folks.
Yep.
Tony Valeri says Scott is the least at fault for this mess. I couldn't agree more. Neil DeBeck says, I think he's a good coach, but he's been handed a fistful of shit this year and asked to bake an apple pie out of it. He has no control. The Silver Scrub says, I don't mind him because I think he's a good coach, if not handcuffed by a bad roster and this management team. Gilbert Marion says he's saddled with bad players. Give him a better team. Stay. Zero Ghost 8 says, oh, Scotty's got to go. Scotty's got to go. Turd Ferguson says, I think Arniel was capable of taking the reins from Bones. Not sure I trust him to rebuild a franchise on the bench, though, which is an interesting take. Mr. Crampy Canadian says, I have to wonder how much of last season's success was a carryover from Bones. I'd give him a few months under a new GM management team before I let him go if it was up to me. As you heard, that's exactly where I stand with it.
Zach Bittman over on Facebook wants to know, one, what do we think the chances are that Chevy or Arniel actually go this year? And as a follow-up, do we really think that it's Chevy holding the team back from separating 55 and 81? He thinks that the head coach should be the one making that decision 100% of the time.
Should be, but let me paint you a picture here. You've mentioned a few times how many coaches Chevy has gone to hire. And you're telling me that every single coach had the exact same vision for the roster, that the previous guy got canned for trying to make it work. I think there's a much bigger story than what's being presented with the Kyle Connor, Mark Shifley, and management stuff. And I will keep hammering it home until someone gets to the bottom of it, because that is 100% outside the control of the coach. And even Bones, towards the end of him, was pretty much being honest about every single public conversation. We know Rick Bowness was a very honest man in the media.
Yep.
And that was the only conversation he always tried to deflect from. If you trace this thing back, this is above the head coach's head. And that is part of the problem why the organization finds himself where it is. 100%. 100% something funny is going on behind the scenes to keep the Golden Boys happy. And it's limiting every coach that comes into town.
Yeah, and that's why I'm also skeptical on
100%.
making a change, because do we expect a new head coach to come in and actually do that? No, because again, it's but they're not going to hire a guy that's going to go against it, right?
Desperation, do you do crazy things, buddy?
I mean, yeah, if they're going to have their Joker moment, right? They're going to turn to a man they barely understood. That's be interesting. That would be a creative way out of this problem, and I don't see the Jets being that creative. I feel like if Arniel is let go, it's going to be another player who's going to do things, quote unquote, the true North way, and not rock the boat.
Oh, of course the dog needs to use the washroom, man. Caitlin Doucette on Arniel said, Arniel can read the game well, but he needs to show more assertiveness and backbone. I think that's fair.
Yep.
And it seems like the chat all seems to agree something's going on with management and this whole top two guys split.
Yeah, it's too many coaches in a row.
Just look at the Ehlers stuff, too.
Yep.
We had one of the best lines in hockey and never saw it again.
Yep.
Something's going on here. Funny. We're gonna have a visitor tonight from the dog.
Welcome in, Leslie.
So we've talked about the management and the coaching staff. Let's start going through the roster of the Winnipeg Jets, and we'll save the big boys to last. How I want to present this is with each player we discuss. Let's talk about it in the framework of a retool and a rebuild. How's that sound?
Okay.
Let's start in net because it's easy. We'll get it out of the way. There's a rental as a backup for the Winnipeg Jets. Has not played at all during this losing streak. Eric Comrie. What happens with Eric Comrie moving forward on the Winnipeg Jets?
You mean undefeated in the Jets' last 10 games, Eric Comrie? Yeah, as a very cheap NHL backup who's more than happy here, I don't think you're going to be getting a lot of return on an Eric Comrie. I think that's an easy one to sign again if you need. Now, again, if asks start coming in for whatever reason, you jump on it, and if you can get an asset, sure. Or if he starts asking for a ridiculous contract all of a sudden. But I'm not in a rush to dump Comrie. Now, if there's a better option in free agency this summer, I'm jumping on that 100%, no question. I'm not set that Eric Comrie has to be part of this going forward. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of market for Eric Comrie in a trade.
Yeah, good foot soldier. I guess he's good for the content game.
Yep.
But yeah, if you can get a pick for him, you just do it. If you can't, keep him here till summer.
Yep.
I mean, it's nothing too crazy on the goalie market for a backup like Eric Comrie.
Yeah.
But I would be open to finding a more trustworthy backup. But the problem is, we know Connor Hellebuyck's getting those games anyways, so why would you spend on that?
Yep.
Moving from there, we're not doing Connor Hellebuyck. We're going to move to the decor. Let's start with the rentals. Luke Schenn. What happens with Luke Schenn in 2026?
Luke Schenn gets traded for a second round. Oh, sorry, 2026. Oh, sorry. I went. God, that would have been nice, though. Can you imagine? Unfortunately, that boat anchor is firmly attached to the Winnipeg Jets. I cannot see anybody wanting to put up any type of asset for Luke Schenn at age 36 while he struggles to put on his fucking socks every day, never mind playing NHL games. So I think that's a boat anchor we are attached to.
I think they're going to get like a 5th or 6th round pick for him, and I will be thrilled.
Old. You think they can get a 5th or a 6th?
Hey, the one thing you can never underestimate, how silly NHL GMs get at the beginning of March for a big, physical, former Stanley Cup champion. There will be a late round NHL draft pick for Luke Schenn this year.
I smell a wager. You and I right here.
You tell me what you want.
All right, I got a quarter of some beautiful cannabis for you if he gets moved for a 5th or a 6th. But if he's that boat anchor stuck to us by the end of the year, then I want it coming this way.
Sounds good.
Beautiful.
Sounds good.
Let's
I'm
do
in
it.
on that. I know Turd's gonna be jealous of that wager, but I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. It's gonna be a lot less than what they gave up for him.
Yep.
Within 12 months. But I would never doubt these jokers that run some of these teams. As Matt Rothman points out, NHL GMs love their physical defensemen, especially with a cup ring on that finger.
Oh.
Someone will stick him in the press box for a run.
It'd be the happiest bet to lose. If the Jets can get something for him, I'll be happy.
I mean, I would rather him just waived and we could get Salo some minutes, but
yeah,
I think they can get a pick for him. I really do.
Interesting. All right.
We'll see where that one goes. Sticking to the rentals. He plays a ton in Winnipeg ever since they traded a 4th rounder for him. Colin Miller.
I think they can probably recoup a pick for him. I think for me, that's where I think a 5th or a 6th round pick you can probably move Miller for a late round pick. A little bit younger than Schenn. Doesn't have that ring. You're right, but about half the amount for the contract. Easy add at the deadline. He can move the puck decently well when he's playing okay. He just never gets more than one game at a time now. So, yeah, that's one I think they can move for a pick and absolutely should since they hate him.
No, I'm actually the opposite on you this one. I think he's the one that they just got to waive and let Salo come and play. And I'm not even convinced there's a pick out there for Colin Miller at this point.
Interesting. All right.
We're talking about a guy that's played 14 games?
Yeah, I was going to say 14, I think.
I don't think there's much value there. And the fact that they don't even want to use him, just waive him and give Salo that spot to get him some games.
Yeah. Yes. The fact that Salamonson can't even crack the roster right now is crazy.
But yeah, if you can get a late round pick, collect the assets.
Yep.
Jared Ferguson says they will get something for Shen. I'm in with Nick, and he'll help smoke the reward.
Excellent.
Now we go to V. Bartel said, what kind of return do you think the Jets would get if they trade Logan Stanley at the deadline?
Woo.
He is the third rental on D. The Stanimal, becoming one of the best memes I've seen. The Olympic snub, the secondary scoring punch of the Winnipeg Jets. What happens with him in 2026? And what does that trade look like if it's a trade?
So off the hop, I would trade Logan Stanley in a heartbeat, especially with the career year he's having. The fact that the rest of the Jets roster is struggling so badly makes him more of the story, which is only going to help drive that value up out on the market. So if you can capitalize on a player that should not bring you in as much of a return as he probably could, that is just good asset management. You need to do that. However, I am still really, really worried that Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to jump at the chance to ink that man onto a new contract going forward. And I think that's maybe the more likely scenario. But if I were in the GM seat, I would be shopping Logan Stanley, and I'd be banging on for a first. I would take that shit right down to the deadline if I have to try to squeeze as close to a first-round pick as I can for Logan Stanley.
Yeah, I'm worried about the big Cheveldayoff. Oh, he finally successful. Let's lock this guy in.
Yep.
Which will make Alfred Frey and Bodeman both redundant in Winnipeg for the length of that deal, which would just piss me off even more because you're now blocking even more draft and development.
Yep.
But yes, Tony Valeri, he is a UFA. So some thoughts on Stan. Matt Rothman says Stan is getting a second-round pick. The Silver Scrub says a first-round pick plus a C prospect or a mid-round pick for Logan Stanley. Someone is going to go crazy. Zero Ghost 8 says big bad Stan for a second and a fourth. Pomerlane says Stan's value will never be higher than it is right now. He needs to be traded. Absolutely has to.
Yep.
Gilbert Marion brings some of the cold reality. Says they've waited 8 years for these results. They're never trading him. Another reason he's got to go. Neil DeBeck says Logan Stanley 5x5 extension coming up. Jelly D Bean says Chevy leaves his mark by re-signing Stan to a ridiculous contract right before he gets fired. Like what's his name in Edmonton signing Koskinen to that extension.
Yeah.
For me, I've said it. Logan Stanley and how they handle this situation is the litmus test to see how far gone Kevin Cheveldayoff and his plan are. If he signs him, this organization's in an even darker spot than they were before doing it, which is saying something given the current reality we are staring at. I do think he'll get you a second plus, but if he keeps going on this shooting bender, he's fighting. He's 6'7", like the stuff with Luke Shen, but now with some actual results. There's always a team looking for a big, bad depth defenseman for the playoffs. It wouldn't stun me if you found a late first for Logan Stanley. And if that happens, it's an absolute must-do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think it's a second plus.
I would be still thrilled with a second plus.
Oh, easy.
Like, no question. The amount that we've had to kind of put into it up to this point, if we can get that back, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's totally a net negative over 10 years, but we'll take it at that point.
Yep.
Moving into some of the term defensemen now. We're going to stick to the back end. Hayden Fleury, 2 years at $950K.
God.
He took one game in the playoffs and got himself some term. What happens with Hayden Fleury here? What are you doing here?
How is there 2 years? How?
Well, this year and next year.
Yeah, right. But like, how is he not a UFA at the end of this season? What are we doing? Again, this is what I mean. We cannot identify NHL defensemen at the pro level. We just can't. They've never been able to do it. I can't believe we're handing out these fucking contracts. It's ridiculous. Trade him if you can find anybody willing to take him on. Former first round pick. I'm sure you can fucking find somebody who wants to, pretend he's a reclamation project at 29 years old. Trade him. He's useless. Trade him.
I think he's waiver fodder, but if you can find a late round pick.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I could wave, guys. Fucking waved. Waved yesterday. Waved.
Now, we get into the core four of the Winnipeg Jets defensive group. Starting with the cheapest of the bunch, signed for 2 more years after this year, $4.9 million. We're seeing a bit of a steady, heavy decline
Yep.
the last year and a half now. He's got a minor no trade clause with 10-team no list. Dylan DeMello, what do you want to see happen there in 2026?
This is a tough one because he's been a loyal soldier for the Jets these last few years. Didn't cost them an arm and a leg to acquire. Played a really decent game alongside Josh Morrissey on that top pairing for quite a long time. So it does pain me to kind of say that I think we've kind of reached the end of the Dylan DeMello run. Father time comes for us all, and I just don't think he has the chops to be on that top pairing anymore. Could he still be a fine, third pairing, protected minutes type of guy that could play on a decent team's third? Yeah, absolutely. But I just don't think he can be the Morrissey partner right now and still kind of keep that steady game that we've been used to. So I still think there's probably value there if you can find a dance partner, because again, it's only 2 more years after this one. But yeah, it's a tough one to see because we've watched him play so steadily alongside Morrissey for a good chunk now, but I think that run has come to an end.
Yeah, V. Bartel says, surely a third rounder at least. Mr. Crampin Canadian says, I'm trading DeMello. Over on YouTube, Matt Rothman says, DeMello, I trade soon or buyout if you can get anything. If you can't get anything. The Silver Scrub says, if I could trick someone into taking DeMello, I'd do it, like even a late pick plus a mid prospect. John Chan says, what would Vegas Golden Knights do? They would trade DeMello. Danica Smith says, should ship out Shen. DeMello stand at the deadline. Right side defensemen are always sought after. Pomerlane says, I trade DeMello. I do think he's a guy that you should be shopping going into the deadline. Normally term contracts move in the summer when more money is kind of available. But right-handed D do carry value. He's had the shine of being trusted to play with Josh Morrissey. Though I was kind of having the thought today, how many prime years of Josh Morrissey are we going to waste not having a proper partner for him?
Mm-hmm.
I do think you can get a second-round pick plus for Dylan DeMello, especially with the sake or where the league's at, with so many teams feeling like they're in it, and right-handed D being valuable. I do think you can get a second plus there. So if you're looking to do a retool, I think that's a good move. I'll say this. If you're tearing it down to the studs, I think he's the kind of guy you'd want helping Alfred Frey or Bodeman on a third pair towards the end of that deal. It's going to be an expensive third pairing guy that's clearly declining. But if that was the route you're going, I do see value to him sticking around to help the next wave of like left-handed defensemen, kind of like he, I guess, did with Logan Stanley when we pretended that he was breaking out way back when.
Yep. Yeah, he'd be a great transitional type of guy to kind of bridge that gap between, a current competing roster and young guys coming up to fill in, on the third pairing and hopefully work their way up and through. It's just, it doesn't seem like the Jets have been able to structure the prospect, window that way. So he's kind of, been stuck up there with Morrissey, and when the prospects come up, they have to play on the third pairing together. So yeah, I agree. He'd be a really nice transitional piece in that aspect. It just feels like they don't use him that way.
Well, that, and we know they're going to try and retool it.
Yep.
Mike Friesen says, I'm not in a rush to trade DeMello. V. Bartel says, DeMello loves Winnipeg and has completely set up his family in the city. So unfortunately, they'll probably never move him. And also says DeMello would be fine on a third pairing. He's just not a first pairing guy right now.
Yep.
And I think that is the crux of where things are at with Dylan DeMello's game. I see both sides of that one. If you can get some real value this summer, I like that route. Or into this, or the deadline into the summer, I like that route. But if you're going a bit younger moving forward, I do think that there's some value to keeping him around, lowering the lineup, having a guy that's respected, likes this city, and not being thrown to the wolves on the third pair with like a Luke Shen type guy, right?
Yeah, it's the retool versus the rebuild, right? In a retool, I think you still want Dylan DeMello around.
I don't.
Or sorry, in the rebuild, you still want Dylan DeMello around to usher in with the kids. on that third pairing, like you said. But if you're going for that kind of retool and you can get the, an early second now type of deal, I think you take it.
Mike Friesen said, decent chance he rebounds next year. I'll say this. I do think he's a declining player permanently. We saw fall off last year.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing with him at his age, hockey has become such a tough sport for mid-tier players to age into. I think the guys we truly still see competitive into their mid to late 30s are the guys that have an elite tool of some sort that they can lean onto.
Yep.
And I think the thing with Dylan DeMello was he was always good, not great at a bunch of simple things. And I do think as that physical decline has hit, I don't expect a bounce back there. That's kind of where I'm at with Dylan DeMello.
Yeah, I was expecting that bounce back when he was having the rough run last year. Now that we've seen this rough run kind of transfer from last year through to this year, again, he's got stretches where he's looked better and things like that, but I think this is maybe more so the reality of his game now than what we've been used to in the past.
Moving through the decor. Second lowest paid guy, or second highest of this, or whatever, I don't know what I'm talking about. Dylan Sandberg, 2 more years at $5.75 million. Where are we doing?
Sandberg is the
with,
truth. He's going nowhere. I'm not moving him. I'm not really listening on many calls for him. He's 26 years old. He got top pairing potential in that game. I'm betting the farm on Dylan Sandberg right now. I'm not moving him.
I'm keeping Sandberg in a rebuild or a retool at this moment in time. If you're bringing a guy like Elias Salmonson in, I think he could be a good partner to stabilize him. Maybe it's Josh Morrissey as well. But I think Dylan Sandberg on that left side gives you a stable force. He's only 26. I don't think you got to rush yourself into that one.
Yep.
And you still want quality players to help along or help you rebound in a retool to
Yep.
play with. So I'm keeping Sandberg.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll say this. Gilbert Marion says, this is fun, but does anyone think the Jets org is going to rebuild? Not a chance.
No.
I just want to present as many cases as possible so we get a better outlook on where the 32nd team could do. Maybe we find some good ideas in the bunch, but I don't believe it's going to happen. Matt Rothman says, Sandberg, you got to keep. Al Camino says he's not re-signing, and I do think that's a part of it too, but I do think I keep him around a little bit later into that deal despite that, especially if this team's falling off.
100% agree.
Silver Scrub says you only move Sandberg if someone offers you something unfathomable, like a top 5 pick, which, yeah, I'd have trouble seeing that happening. Al Camino does say you might want to keep him, but he is going to want to stay. Or is he going to want to stay? You still do have 2 years after this to get the most out of the asset. I don't think that's one you have to rush. Turd Ferguson says, if we're tearing this down, does Sammy want to re-sign? Have time to find out, but don't get too attached. Of course. Hey, I said at the time of that deal, when they went bridge, the one positive of the bridge was you were going to have a $5.75 million top 4 shutdown D-man if things went off the rails to trade off. I'm not saying never. I'm saying in the next 12 months, keep him around and see where things are at again this time next year.
Yep, totally agree. We're not going to be seeing an age decline on Dylan Sandberg from this year to next year kind of thing. Like the asset's not going to be dropping in value there. It's that's one to definitely hold on to and wait to see what you can do.
I'll keep Morrissey for the final Big Four conversation.
Yep.
Neil Pionk, after this year, 4 more years at $7 million, if I'm reading this correctly. He's got a trade clause for 15 teams, year 1, 6 to 10 or 15 teams, year 1 to 3, year 4 to 6, 10 teams. What is the play with Neil Pionk?
I get into my DeLorean. I go back to last year, and I trade him. I trade him then when I could have gotten a hell of a lot more.
There's still
for him.
value there, buddy.
Oh God, it's just harder to do now because you've got the no trade lists to start to deal with. So you cut off half the league for the next 3 years that he can veto off, right? So that one sucks to me. I hate the fact that we that we signed him. I was hoping they were either going to let him walk out into the sunset in free agency or move him then for the pieces. But Neil Pionk is not one that I want to keep around in a rebuild or a retool. I'm going to be honest. I don't see the value there. I just don't. He's fine in an offensive role, especially when he's got a partner who's willing to clean up the mess behind him. I don't want to be the one paying him $7 million a year until 2031 in either scenario, retooling or rebuilding. So I'm moving Neil Pionk off the roster. I am going to find a dance partner as best that I can and try to recoup some assets.
We better start finding some D. We're moving off all our right-handed guys.
Yeah,
but
fine.
that is kind of the reality of the right side of the D core.
Yep.
But the Silver Scrub corrects me and says, isn't it 5 years? It is 5 years after this deal. And I do like this take from Gilbert Marion. Says, I'm no fan, but he tries so hard and our second best offensive D. The one thing with Neil Pionk, he's never going to cheat you on effort. He's competitive. He's physical. He tries. I do think that, and I'm with V. Bartel here, offensive, right-handed, can be a rat. Pionk might fetch a solid return. I do wonder, actually, that if you could find a pretty strong retooling trade here with a first and some kind of beat-level prospect. Now, the term on that deal is the tough part. I could see, though, between the fact he was invited to the Olympics, there's a bit of shine there. Right-handed D are at such a premium. I could see you getting a top 6 scoring winger or a first and a B-type prospect for him, and I'd love to do that kind of move. How you would approach that situation, you take the first and the prospect if you're going the rebuild route. If you're going the retool route, I think you could turn him into more some offense up front.
Do you think you could find a 2C for Neil Pionk out there? A little bit of a
You might be
reclamation
able to
project?
find a 2C bet on a youngish player that may have stalled out.
Yep.
Kind of like where Pionk was when the Jets acquired him.
That's exactly where my brain went.
You might be able to do that. I'd be honestly genuinely curious because I do think there would be some markets in the NHL that would really value the player.
Yep.
He brings a lot of the tools that I get why people are a fan of him. I just
100%.
don't think at that money.
Yep, exactly. I would rather somebody else pay him that amount of money instead of the Jets. And if I can find a little bit of scoring punch up front as a replacement, I make that move.
One of the nice things with the deal is it is a front-loaded deal, so the last years of the deal, the money goes down.
Yep.
So that might make it more attractive. That was a bit of a smart play.
Yep.
Let's move into the offense, if you could call it that, for the Winnipeg Jets on New Year's Eve here tonight. And Tico and Paulie says on D, got to make room for Verhoff.
That's right.
Let's move to the forwards here. What should we do with the forward group? And one more, V. Bartel, Barrett Hayden for Neil Pionk. I would take a bet on Barrett Hayden, and he seems to be falling out of favor in Utah.
Yeah.
That's the type of bet I'd like to see up the middle in Winnipeg.
Agreed. Actually, that's a good idea. I like that. Good idea of your.
I like that suggestion. Okay. Cole Koepke, $1 million rental, banished to the press box. What happens next in 2026?
He
Cole Koepke?
can stay in the press box and he can keep popping in every once in a while. He's been, out of all of the fourth line anchors that they signed this offseason, he's my least. He's the one I have the least amount of problems with. He's fine. He can be a fourth line guy. He can be a press box guy. He's only making $1 million. I don't think there's going to be a market for Cole Koepke out there. And out of the rest of the, like I said, the guys that we brought in, he's the one that I'm least concerned with at the moment. So he can keep being a part-time bit player for the Jets. I think that's fine for now.
Al Camino had an idea on Pionk saying offer him to Calgary for Huberdeau with some retention. Worst case, the comedy would be great. I don't think Calgary would be into that, but that just gave me an idea.
Ooh.
Would you do something like Pionk? Yeah, he's got no move clause, so it doesn't work. Never mind that. 204 Ross says, Nick, you can't trade everyone. You need some players to help integrate the kids. Can't defend 80% of the game or play with zero offensive skill or skilled forwards. And I think that's a big part of it. And I thought, Rahul, I thought you nailed it with the DeMello thing and having him kind of help integrate some players. So that's you talking about that earlier made me think that with DeMello. And that is definitely something you got to keep in mind with this.
Yep, absolutely.
But we're going through the roster. We're talking about the possibilities you can do with each player. It's all part of it. But I don't expect a ton of this to actually happen.
No.
It's just something to kind of talk about and wrap our brains around and try and find some avenues out of the mess.
Just reminding
that
people
they
that it
currently
is
are in.
actually possible to make moves, that these things are technically allowed.
On Kepke, I mean, I'd play him on the fourth line. It is what it is.
Yep.
I think if you trade off guys like that for late picks, if you can get it, you can call up guys like Walker Dewar, David Gustafson, Fagemo, those types towards the end of the year.
Yep.
To cover some of that up. You also might, in rental deals, be asked to take back a guy that's going to be waived or off the roster where you could kind of fill some of those lower spots, taking off the junk from the other team.
Yep.
But yeah, Cole Koepke, I don't know. If you waive him, sure. If you get a late pick, sure. If you keep him, sure. No real hard stance on Cole Koepke.
Yeah.
Tanner Pearson,
Wave.
$1 million. Can't waive him because he signed here in the summer apparently. So what would you do with Tanner Pearson?
Wave. So waved into the cannon and shot out of the cannon. No, like he shouldn't be on this team in 2025, let alone playing second line minutes, for fuck's sakes. It's insane. Again, I don't see much of a market for Tanner Pearson out there. If there is a late round pick, I'm taking it, but otherwise he's finding himself on that waiver report so quickly.
Yeah, for me, I don't think there's much of a market here, but put him in the press box, waive him, keep him around to the end of the year. He won't be back next year.
Yep.
Whatever happens there, honestly, do not care.
Nope.
As T-Cone, Paulie says, is he still here for fuck's sakes? Moving on up. Morgan Barron, this year and next year, $1.85 million. Obviously, the bright spot for a lot of people this year.
Yep.
Plays with the pace they need. A little limited. I don't think he's the 2C answer, but a player that has given us reason to tune into games.
Yep.
What would you be looking at doing with Morgan Barron?
I'm re-signing Morgan Barron. He's only 27 years old. I think
He signed through next year anyways.
Oh, that's right. He's not one of our UFAs this year. My bad. Yeah. No, I'm keeping Morgan Barron. Again, nobody on the roster is quote unquote untouchable. Nobody, is the Jets don't have many forwards up front that are, you would look at and go, nobody absolutely can trade for this guy. So of course, in any package, that's a big win for the Jets if he's included. That's not the end of the world. But I'm not actively shopping Morgan Barron. I think he provides some decent punch on that third line, or I guess lately it's been the second line with Adam Lowry. His speed is something the Jets are so dearly lacking in right now. And we see that Lowry especially works well with a winger that's got that kind of pace. So I'm happy to keep Barron on the team. I'm not moving him. I'm keeping him alongside Lowry and going to keep that rolling.
Over on YouTube, that is this common consensus. As the Silver Scrub says, I keep Barron for a third line. Gilbert Marion says keep him for 5 more years. Matt Rothman says Barron keep. Zero Ghost 8. Bear is gonna get us a first at the deadline. T Kona Pauly says Barron stays. V Bartle says crazy Barron is a Jets 4th highest scoring forward. I'm gonna be the bad guy tonight. You 100% shop Morgan Barron at this deadline, and it's not even something to even think about. He would be one of the most attractive, reasonable pieces outside the core that you could trade. If you can get a high second or a low first with that contract and what he's providing, I could see a team liking that extra year under $2 million that you might get a pick at a level that would surprise you. And you could actually get a better player than him using that pick if you're trying to retool in the summer. Now, if it's only like a third-round pick or something, you keep him because you're just shuffling the deck chairs there.
Yeah.
He's 100% someone you put out there and see what a team's willing to pay on his deal with how he looks and what he might bring a Stanley Cup team. I'm sorry. He's a depth player at the end of the day. And if you can get a high-quality asset for a guy like that, 100% he should be on the shop list this year.
I did not think a late first, early second would be kind of in the realm of possibility there for Barron. I was thinking more of that, like third type of deal, which made me go, I'll just kind of keep it. But do you think there could be enough of a market out there to get something like that, a high second, maybe late first?
On the deal that he's playing on with the extra year, with teams that run at the top of the chasing cups, running out of cap room, how he plays with pace, what he brings to the game, I do think he'd be attractive to playoff teams. And that's a credit to Morgan Barron, what he's built.
Yep.
I'm more than fine if he stays here, but that is a guy you at least have to be listening on to see if somebody surprises you, because you could replace a bottom six player fairly easily if you get that kind of asset. Like V. Bartel's going exactly where I'm thinking, says teams want guys like Kiefer Sherwood and Morgan Barron. I think you'd be surprised at the deadline what he could bring back.
Yeah, that is definitely surprising, and like I said, I'd be all into it if you get in a late first.
100%. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Al Camille points out someone paid seconds for Tanev and Shev.
Don't do that to me.
Gilbert Barron says disagree. I see a lot of upside. I see the good. I don't think he's ever going to be an impact player. And for me, any non-impact player that you could turn into high picks, you do it every time.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
Agree.
Jonathan Taves has a negative part of his contract where every 10 games he shows up to work, he counts more and more against the cap. Will hurt his trade value. Has not been great. Looks fairly cooked. What are we doing with the local kid?
No one's going to like my answer, or maybe people will like my answer because of the way he's been playing, but boy, he's waved so fast. So fast. It would make his head spin. Look, you can, we'll stitch a C onto your Moose jersey. I don't give a shit. But that's what I'm doing with it. He's not an NHL player. He might be statistically the worst NHL forward this year so far. It's not his game anymore, which sucks. You know what? They during the game today, he had a run there of a little bit, right, where he was kind of circling around the net. They had a few opportunities, and somebody kind of made the comment of like, Taves is starting to really put it together, and I'm like, yeah, another 36 to 40 games, and he'll really be there. It's just not there for him this year. So. Unfortunately, I'm sticking his name on that waiver report. He's clearing because, like you said, he gets paid just for showing up and at a rate that's way too fucking high. And then I'm stitching a C onto his Moose jersey.
V. Bartle says, sit Taves so we can stop paying him all his money. Over on YouTube, Silver Scrub says he should retire tomorrow. Re-sign him for life. From Al Camino, time to rescind on that JT contract from Tico Napoli. Given where this is going, I don't even care if they run it out the rest of the year. We're tanking. I don't think there's a pick out there. Enjoy the thrill of seeing Taves on the back of the name bar. I don't know where else it's going.
Yep. There isn't. There's nowhere else for it.
A couple great comps, though, on YouTube on the Barron stuff. Noah Lafort said, Barron reminds me of a Blake Coleman or Barclay Goudreau when they got traded.
Ooh.
Very similar player and similar contract. I think teams would eat him up.
That's a good comp.
And then Turd Ferguson also points out, look what we got for Kopp. Kopp had better numbers, but Barron is a good depth forward. Just some things to put out there. Continuing the trek through the Winnipeg Jets depth was apparently supposed to be a 2C. Vlad Nemestikov. One more year after this year at $3 million.
Ugh. How? Again, another one. How is there more term after this season on that contract? That shit makes no sense to me. If you can find a dance partner for Vlad, I'm taking that one. That's not a guy that I'm dead set on having to build around. He's a 4C on a good day. That's kind of where you would want him to be. And the Jets unfortunately have to play him like a 2C most of the time. If you got a dance partner for Vlad, I'm taking that one all day. He's not in my plans going forward. I can't believe we still have another year after this one.
Yeah, as V. Bartle says, Vladdy has sadly been horrendous this year. The next time he gets a point is going to feel like a surprise? At
I
this
would
point?
argue he has been this way for a while. It's just that playing with Nick Ehlers for a big chunk of the season really covered a lot of that up.
For sure. I do think there's teams will look at him as a depth player to add. I think you can get like a fourth round pick maybe. If you can get a third, even better. But I would want to get out of that money and use those picks to try and find a better fit
Yep.
next year if you're trying to retool.
Yep.
We'll see what the market looks like. I mean, the guy hasn't put up anything in how long? You might be stuck with it going into the summer.
Yep.
But we'll see where that goes. Kalen Doucette points out, we got him for a fifth. If we can get back a fourth round pick, I'd take it.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, if you can get a fourth, I'd take it for sure. Cole Perfetti
Oh, my
heading
boy.
into another RFA year. Quite the situation, I think, developing there. What are we doing with Cole Perfetti?
I know everybody's real eager to ship him out of town. Got to trade him. Everybody, he doesn't do anything. He's horrible. He's useless. And I agree, he's not had a good start to the season. It's been real bad. The offensive game is not there whatsoever. And for a guy that they drafted in the top 10, a guy they drafted hoping to, play center to kind of fill a, that 2C role that's been empty forever and a day now, to now be relegated to a winger playing in the, bottom 6 of the lineup most games is not a great progression. However, it's for a lot of those reasons that I don't think you're going to find a lot of value coming back for Cole Perfetti. I don't know if you're going to get an impact player back. Maybe if you've got another team with a real struggling, young player like that, if you want to try to do a swap of reclamation projects. But if you're just looking at pure value, it might be hard to get the most out of it. With his contract negotiations coming up and the fact that his season hasn't gone well, it's not going to be an expensive contract. You've probably got a chance to sign him fairly cheap. So I'm going to probably take the unpopular route and say I'm still going to sign Cole Perfetti this year. Oh,
Hey, you
and-
might be.
And
Go
I
for
am
it.
going to try to play him at center in the offseason. I'm going to see if that is something that's there.
Okay, so diving into the chat, I think Danica Smith makes a really good point saying we can also retain a bunch of cap for trades to get more picks,
Yeah.
considering we'll have $7 million at the deadline. Everything heading into the deadline should be about maximizing assets. But moving into the Perfetti stuff, Kalen Doucette says, I'd start shopping him in the offseason. Al Camino says, how about trying him down the middle like you just mentioned? Zero Ghost 8 wants to play him with the Bobsey twins. He sees how you bring back some value.
Yep.
Gilbert Marion says, terrible year. He's costing himself millions, tons of money. He's costing himself tons of money. Maybe you give him 3 years and see if he gets up to his ceiling. Ticona Pauly says, Fets for Benson, and I doubt Buff does it. I doubt Buff does it too.
Yeah,
That's an easy one.
I can't see them doing it.
But where I believe this is trending, you have to start looking for what Cole Perfetti's value is on the trade market. I don't think that's going to be a good RFA negotiation on either side's behalf. I could see another Winnipeg holdout coming. I don't blame either party on this one either. I think the orgs really screwed him by who he's playing with this year.
Yep.
I don't think he's helped himself. I think a divorce is coming. If you could find a way to reclamation project him into a 2C, that might be the play. But I'd start letting go of your boy. I don't think there's going to be a long-term future for Cole Perfetti after this year in Winnipeg.
It's starting to feel that way. It's starting to feel like the not the same situation, but just that feeling of seeing the writing on the wall for Nick Ehlers, going out the door eventually. It's starting to make me feel that same way.
Yeah, and I do think he's been hurt by the roster construction as much as anyone. I mean,
100%.
he's a secondary playmaker to a scoring line and plays off speed to create space. Doesn't have that in Winnipeg.
Nope.
And very interested to see where that one goes, but I don't think he will be here much longer.
I feel like somebody's gonna get a nice Cole Perfetti gift in another city when they figure out how to put him with some real line mates.
I'm not so sure. Caitlin Doucette says, I think you shop him, but be picky for the time for the time being. I think that's the right way to go.
Yep.
Jelly D Bean says Fetch should be part of a package to get Uyghur or a legitimate player on D. I'd love to use them that way to get an impact defender or a 2C.
Yep.
I think that's the way to go.
Agreed.
I think that combo's coming.
It's gonna
Gustav Nyquist rental, $3.25 million. What are we doing with old Gustav?
I know they're highlighting him for a trade or showcasing him for a trade, and they're putting him on the top power play unit, and they had him play on the top line for the beginning of that one game, and they're going to get some value out of it. No, they're fucking not. No, they're fucking not. Everybody else is watching him play. They know that the juice just isn't there. Yeah, he's had an okay last couple of games. I don't put a lot of stock into that. Again, 36 years old. Atrocious start to the season, snake bit, whatever you want to call it. I'm waiving him. I'm sorry. I don't even care. I'm not even going to try to find a trade partner. I don't give a shit. He's hitting the waivers tomorrow.
Another one you're wrong on, my guy. Another one you're wrong on. We might have to have a second bet. Gustav Nyquist will get the Winnipeg Jets a mid to late round pick.
Oof.
And they should not be waiving him. If you want to waive Tanner Pearson, go ahead. There's no value there.
Yep.
There's value in Gustav Nyquist at the deadline to a fringe playoff team. They'll be able to recoup a pick 100%, and they should keep him on the PP1, honestly.
Just until that happens.
Yep. No, 100%.
Keep the showcase going.
They will get a pick for Gustav Nyquist. I think his perception is
Where
gone
do
a
you see
little too
that
much
pick?
skewed in Winnipeg.
Where do you think that pick ends up?
Probably like a 4.
A 4? I'll take a 4.
Yeah, 4 sounds right.
I'll take that.
See where that goes. Choices TK wants to see 91 plus to Tampa for Geeky. And V Bartle says some delusional team will probably take Nyquist. I think it'll happen. And Caitlin Doucette points out 50% retained on him will get you something.
That's
I agree.
true. You retain 50%, somebody will bite on that. I just the full number. Look, I went, God.
There's a lot of cap space out there available right now too.
Yeah.
Continuing on, Alex Iafallo, 2 more years at 2.66 mil after this year for the 32-year-old winger.
AI is an interesting one. He either plays on the top line or he plays on the fourth line. They don't really they never really find a permanent spot for him. He's their floater. He's there kind of just, wherever they stick him in there. He's got 2 more years after this one at 3.66.
Yep.
I'm probably just sitting on AI just to keep filling out the roster. That's one that, again, I don't know if there's going to be a big market for anybody beating down your door for Alex Iafallo, but I think he does enough kind of up and down the lineup at that price, and you still need to fill out a roster and still have to have 12 forwards out there. 12 forwards out there. So
he's one of those guys I think fits what Rahul's talking about, where you still want quality NHLers to play with some of what you're gonna bring in or look to do in the summer. You still have probably another year before you have to move that one. So he's the kind of guy where if a team kind of beats down your door and surprises you, I think you listen to an offer for a guy like him. But he's not one I think you necessarily have to rush yourself into given the current situation, given the timeline. He's still 32. Like you say, he's plug and play in Winnipeg. I think there's value if you're trying to retool keeping a guy like him and what he's kind of meant and what he can kind of do on different lines and what he can bring. So he's the kind of guy you put a price tag on him. If a team matches it, hey, you just got the value that you're hoping for. If they don't, he's not someone you rush out the door.
totally agree.
As the Silver, Gilbert Marion says keep. The Silver Scrub says if you can get something decent, a second or higher for AI, trade him. If not, keep him. Caitlin Doucette says, again, I think you listen to offers for him, but be more selective than the other guys. Agree with that.
Yep.
Gilbert Marion says he needs to be a third, fourth liner PK guy, which he fits really well in that role. Zero Ghost 8 points out AI to Buffalo for a pick or prospect, and that's been a bit of a rumbling for a while that Buffalo's been interested in the guy.
Hometown for him.
But as Jelly D Bean puts it, good stopgap guy, trade next year. And Caitlin Doucette, I like this too. I like this takeaway. If I'm moving AI, I would want a player coming back for AI to kind of fill into that roster spot.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that makes sense.
Yep.
That's not one you got to rush into for picks.
No.
Continuing on, Nino Niederreiter. Originally cost a second. I think the Jets have definitely gotten their value out of it.
Yep.
He's got in one more year at $4 million. We're seeing a bit of decline in the very consistent during his career, Nino Niederreiter. What is the play with Nino Niederreiter?
I'm cashing in on Nino. I'm probably trying to move him, not because he's been bad, not because I don't like him as a player. The exact opposite. I really like him. Like you said, the Jets have gotten that value, back in spades so far from the trade. And if you can now flip him for a similar kind of value going back out the other way, I think you do it. Teams have been trading for Nino Niederreiter at the deadline, for time immemorial. The man has been a hot commodity at the deadline for many years for that exact reason. He's a versatile guy that can kind of play in your middle six. He's consistent. You know what you're going to get out of him in terms of effort every single night. So I think you can trade Nino. I think you can get a halfway decent return. And unfortunately, because he's been one of the okay spots out, for the depth, I think that's what makes him the trade candidate.
Yeah, I think Nino's been a player I've always appreciated. I think he's kind of in that Dylan DeMello bucket where we've seen 2 straight years of a step back. I think we've hit the decline phase for Nino Niederreiter. I think you can get that second round pick back for him still, if not a third. And I do think that's maybe a spot you're looking to retool and find the next Nino Niederreiter using picks that you bring in at the deadline in the summer with a younger group. So I think he's someone that's going to get you value at the deadline. I think he's someone that could help a team that's in the playoffs still. But I think for where the Winnipeg Jets are at, that it is time for Nino Niederreiter to be part of that deadline shopping spree or selling spree.
Yep, totally agree.
Some thoughts in the chat on Nino. Choices TK says Nino and Chen back to the Preds for trots for a second and a fourth if they get in the playoff race. V Bartle says Nino to a contender at the deadline wouldn't be too bad. I'm sure a team would pay nicely. Over on YouTube, Gilbert Marion says love Nino, but he's got to go. The Silver Scrub says I trade Nino. Get what you can as he falls off. Zero Ghost 8 says love Nino, but he's got to go, and you can get value at the trade deadline all day. Caitlin Doucette thinks you can get a second round pick plus late pick easy. Can't Control Life asks, it looks like a Sens fan here. Nice to see you to join the show. Says time to move Nino, ? I think it is. Caitlin Doucette says maybe a second and a fourth, perhaps. I might be a little surprised at that high, but I do think you can get a second, if not a third, leading that deal. Jelly D Bean says he would be a good addition to a contender. He deserves a good run. We'd have to retain money, but he'd be deadly on a bottom 6 squad. That's good. And Can't Control Life asks why. Mostly because the Winnipeg Jets are an aging team that's missing their next 2 second-round picks, their next 2 fourths. They have a bottom 10 farm system. They have to start looking towards the future. And I don't think Nino Niederreiter is going to be part of a team bouncing back into contention for the Jets next year. I think that's a piece that they have to cash in this year and start looking towards that future.
Yeah, it's just value retention at that point, right? He's got a lot of value now. You may not have as much of it after, and he's not going to be part of the, retool/rebuild that you would hope they're starting to get good again in the, 2 to 3 years down the road type of thing. So you cash in on Nino now, you thank him for his service, and you try to take those picks into, like you said, a slightly younger version of Nino Niederreiter out on the market so that you can get this retool going.
Yeah, and that is someone I do think if you're willing to retain money would juice that return as well. Like
Agreed.
If you get him down to $2 million this year and next year,
yep,
that's actually a pretty valuable player to a lot of contenders where that Caitlin Doucette ask might be in play.
Yeah, if you're retaining, I think you can absolutely start asking for a second and a late pick.
Now, let's move into the core 5.
Here we go.
Starting with the GOAT, Connor Hellebuyck. 8.5 mil for the rest of his career. Where you at with Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets?
I might be Delulu, but I still think I'm gonna bet on the retool going fast enough that I can cash in on Connor Hellebuyck being a part of it still. So I'm not moving Connor Hellebuyck. I'm not trading Connor Hellebuyck. Again, everything. Again, Wayne Gretzky got traded. Anybody can get traded if the package and the price are the right. I'm not saying that I wouldn't listen to anything ever, but I am not actively moving the best goaltender in the world on this contract. I'm just not. I think that with the right, again, we're not talking about what the Jets are actually going to do because we know they're not, but with the right creative approach, you can retool this roster, I think, back into a decent one and not a 6 to 8 year time frame. I think you can do it way less than that. So I'm holding on to Hellebuck, and I'm going to try to make that retool work still within his contract time.
Yeah, that's the one for me that you only trade if he asks out of Winnipeg. That's the one where if you look at what happened in Vancouver, you look at it and say, the management failed this player. This player isn't leaving because he wanted out. It's because the org forced him to. You got to make him a Jet for life if he wants to do it.
Yep.
But if he asks out, it's going to be a dark day. Over in the chat, Caitlin Doucette says, I keep him until he asks out. Gilbert Marion says he's a lifer. Matt Rothman says, Helly, keep because goalie value isn't good. The Silver Scrub says, only untouchable for me because of how bad goalies' values are. Seems like everyone is in the same page on this one.
And again, he's
the big question is...
Sorry, again, he's the reigning Hart and Vezina road. Like, he is the best. He was the best
Hard
player in the
fault.
National Hockey League last year. It's just, you got to hold on to that guy for now.
Oh, you hold on to him until he asks to go. That guy's just too important.
Agreed.
Al Camino says, keep him until he realizes Chevy has no idea what he's doing and asks for a trade.
Yeah.
Can't Control Life says, all Canadians teams suck in the end. I thought y'all were a Red Wings stream. Not quite. We're discussing our misery of the Jets and trying to figure out how we're going to dig out of a 32nd place hole 6 months after winning the President's Trophy.
Yep.
Depressing times there.
It's hard.
It is hard. We move to the back end. Josh Morrissey, 2 more years at $6.25 million. Made the Olympic team this year. What is the play with Josh Morrissey moving forward?
Oh, this is the interesting one. 30 years old, 2 more seasons signed after this. One of the best defensemen in the entire National Hockey League. He's an Olympian. That should be a Norris winner by this point, in my opinion. You've got such an important piece there. And because of that, you could take it in either direction. You could cash in massively if you put Josh Morrissey out on the market right now, right? You look at what Vancouver was doing with Quinn Hughes, and if you have less of a contentious time limit on the trade, you can probably get a real nice package if Josh Morrissey is the prize at the end of it, right? The thing for me is, how long do I think that this retool and rebuild is going to go on? If I'm going to be approaching it as this is a new creative management group who are really committed to making it work, in a 2 to 3 year time span, then there's no question I'm going to keep Morrissey. I'm going to try to sell him on an extension. I want to pair him with Connor Hellebuck. I want that to be the, kind of the backbone of the team there. If I don't think this is a 2 to 3 year quick retool, get this moving really quickly, and I think the Jets are going to be quote unquote bad for a while because they're kind of stuck, then I think you have to start the process of seeing what a Morrissey package coming back would look like. Because if you waste these next 2 years with no real progression, they stay stuck in this like middle of the pack, just outside the playoff line kind of funk. I don't know how you sell Morrissey on re-signing and staying here, and then you're either pushed to move him in that very final year, which you'll still get a good return for, don't get me wrong, but you may also run that risk of walking him to free agency, which could be insane. So it's a tough one. It's got to be a quick retool if you're keeping Morrissey, in my opinion.
Yeah, this one's conflicting. This one's tough. Over on Twitch, V. Bartle says, not that I'd trade him, but JMO would fetch an insane return for the Jets with that contract. Oh, man. Choice of TK says, to jumpstart a rebuild, would need to move one of 45, 55 or 81. Only pieces that bring back the return you need. Mike Friesen says, keep him. Don't be crazy. Over on YouTube, Zero Ghost A says, I'm getting a haul for Josh and running away laughing. Al Camino says he's not resigning. Gilbert Marion says, pay him. Lifer, in my opinion. Matt Rothman says, Morrissey, it pained me to see him go, but you got to seek a package at the very least. Tony Valeri says, JMO trade would speed up a retool. The Silver Scrub says, as much as I hate it, moving 44 is the best way to get good value. A Quinn Hughes S trade, I'd move him at the draft. More on JMO. Caitlin Doucette says, trading him next year is committing to a full-on rebuild. Tony Valeri says, and can we pay JMO 12 a year? Caitlin Doucette says, I think trading him is a bad idea, but I don't trust his management group to not lose him for nothing. T-Will says, woohoo, win the cake save of the game. And Nick still on, wicked. Yeah, we're going all night tonight, apparently, on New Year's. So, this is a tough one for me because he starts to fall. I wanted to trade Kyle Connor to get ahead of this portion of where the team finds themselves. At some point, you need to replenish in Winnipeg. And if you start looking at this objectively, he's going to be 33 at the end of his contract. And he's going to go from a $6 million player to a $12, $13 million player. And he's earned it. At some point, there's going to have to be a hard bullet sold here in Winnipeg to make sure that there's actually a future for this organization. I don't think this contract picks up, or this convo picks up until 12 months from now. I think they'll try and retool it in the summer and try again next year. If they're out of it again next year, I think you have to. And it's going to suck. Like the Quinn Hughes and Connor Hellebuck conversation, you just can't burn all this value at the top of the lineup in Winnipeg into all these guys' late 30s so that you could say that they drafted and developed and stayed in Winnipeg and watch this thing float into the abyss. You missed moving the Kyle Connor one, and now we have a $12 million player that can't be trusted to drive his own line, which already puts you in trouble. By paying Josh Morrissey at 33 years old, you're tripling down on this as the decline starts to hit everybody.
Yep.
Like, at some point, as James Eichstra says, players keep their value for only so long. Looking into the future is key. The way I look at this, the Winnipeg Jets star players are playing well, and the floor of this team is still a 32nd place team. I think last year, the pendulum swung to everything going well to such a degree that was never going to happen again. I think this year, it swung all the way the other way. My concern is, with the current state of the age group of this team and the lack of farm system in Winnipeg, even if the pendulum swings back to the middle, I'm not sure this team's competitive. At some point, there's going to have to be an emotional one made. And if you just look at the contract status now, the values of the contract, and the ages, I think he's the big move if you want to actually ensure there's going to be a future for the Winnipeg Jets. And that's a tough one. That's my favorite player to watch outside of Connor Hellebuck. I think you wait 12 months and get another year in here. But I do think that's a conversation you start wrapping your head around here.
Yes. Josh Morrissey, I think, is the line between a retool and a rebuild. If you're moving Morrissey for that type of package and taking out those minutes that he plays, I think you have now approached the rebuild category of the process as opposed to a quick one season retool.
If we're being honest, that's where this is going over the next 3 years.
Right. So
it's all about when you
keep an eye on
decide that you understand that.
Yep.
So, as Pomeranian says, got to be willing to make some tough decisions.
And as a person who watched the Montreal Canadiens ruin the the career of Carey Price and not get that boy a cup, I don't want to see the same type of things happen to Connor Hellebuck or Josh Morrissey.
Matthew Hyman says maybe the Jets should go even older and slower. that
might fix it.
But that's what you'd be doing by continuing into investing big money into mid to late 30s. You're racing against father time here.
Yep, it's true.
It's a tough one. T. Will says, by the time we reload, Scheif and Helly will be declining. You have to move them. Morrissey could be a bridge player. He's around enough, which I agree. But if you start looking at the business side of it and how the contracts line up, he's looking like the next first big one.
Yep.
Moving into the forwards, the captain just signed 5x5 after this year. Where are you at with Adam Lowry?
He's a Jet for life. He's not moving. I don't see teams coming in to come grab Adam Lowry. I don't see them wanting to move out Adam Lowry. I think Lowry is a Jet for life. I think he's retiring a Winnipeg Jet. So that one I'm not really looking to go out and move him.
No, we've talked about this before, and I think he fits into that bucket Rahul's talking about of wanting quality players and people around.
Yep.
When this thing goes backwards. We've talked about that when he signed. I do think if you just strictly looked at this from an asset management standpoint, he is one that would get you more future value than you're going to get out of that contract. We talk a lot about John Taves and what he looks like at his age. I don't think Adam Lowry's skating is going to look much better as we get into this contract. So if you were doing the hard thing, that's the guy, but I do think there is a lot of value with how much he represents Winnipeg, what he means to the market. This is a small market, and where this is going, having a guy like that around to lead a new bunch, I think there's real value in.
And when Chevy signs Lowry when he turns 37, like we did for Taves, it'll be great. I can't wait.
For sure. Trappinator, this is indeed the tank for McKenna Group. That is the only goal right now. Caitlin, on Lowry, there's a few comments here. Frosty Winnipeg says Lowry's always shows up in the playoffs. You know what you're getting out of him.
Yep.
T. Will says you're not getting anything significant for Lowry. I think that's what surprised you, actually. I think it would surprise you what you could. You got to. The one thing to keep in mind, especially with D and centers, there's not many quality ones available on the market. So when one does come up, the contract is very good. Matt Hyman says, I think Lowry will retire a Jet, but do you think he might want to chase a cup somewhere? I think he's loyal and committed to this. So I think he'll stay.
Yep.
Gilbert Marion says, feels like he's fallen off a cliff. 2 years, then trade him. Caitlin Doucette says he's a good guy to have on the roster during a rebuild. Palmerlane says he shouldn't have been signed for 5 years, especially coming off hip surgery. That was one that the org probably could have waited out because they got Lowry done originally the night before free agency. I think they got a little jumpy there.
Yep.
Thanks for joining the stream. Can't control life. I'm glad you had a good time. Enjoy the walk and have a happy New Year's. Al Camino says Jet for life, but that contract is going to be shit. Signing him so early costs him at least $1 million AAV. Jelly D Bean says Lowry is your dream fourth liner teams would kill for. Caitlin Doucette says GMs would lose their mind for a center of Lowry's size. I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Elias McCracken says Lowry would get a nice return, but he's a Jet for life.
Yep.
I see it. I think asset management wise, that is a bullet. But I do see the personal side and having a guy like that around as this turns over to a new era over the next coming years.
Yeah, that's one guy I'm not worried about. The young guys or the new generation coming up and learning from. Right. That's Lowry's the right type of guy that you want in that spot.
I think this convo will be short, because there's nothing you can really do. You just locked him in for $12 million for the rest of his career. Full no-move clause.
Yep.
What's the play with Kyle Connor?
That's the play. He plays on your top line on your left wing, and he scores hopefully between 40 and 50 goals for you. That's all you can really kind of do and hope for at the moment. Maybe 3 ghosts will visit him in the middle of the night tonight, and they'll show him the error of his ways, and he'll be okay with playing away from Mark Scheifele at some point. That's kind of what I'm banking on and what I'm hoping for, because they desperately need to spread out that talent. He's one of your 2 best offensive players. It is what it is at this point. He's signed long term, and I think you've got to kind of ride the dragon with it now.
Yeah, he was the piece that would have kickstarted this.
Yep.
Some people weren't thrilled with the idea. Imagine a scenario where he's not signed right now and is the belle of the ball on the trade market. I mean, this was predictable, but he's here.
Hypothetically speaking, what do you think? So say he wasn't signed and they were actively shopping him for a trade. What do you think the return for a player like that would have looked like?
Oh, it's going to be similar to what Rantanen got last year, maybe
Yeah.
even more because of the seller's market and what it looks like right now.
Yep.
He would be the most attractive piece by a mile, but it would have needed to be a sign and trade, so he would have had to be a part of it to maximize it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is all about keeping Connor and Shifley happy, and the mistake was made. He's here. Enjoy him scoring goals. At least there'll be some entertainment on the ice.
That's right.
Turd Ferguson says, I don't think KFC is a problem when it comes to splitting up Batman and Robin. Silver Scrub says, try and convince him to wave to go somewhere. Kalen Doucette says, he's your guy now, whether you like it or not. And Elias McCracken says, hope 81 scores more than he costs you on defense. Mike Friesen says, the play for this guy in 55 is to bring in someone with clout on the management side and end the bullshit. If they don't like it, submit the trade list. And that is, you know what, that is the best way. We're not even going to talk about Mark Scheifele because it's the same situation, and I don't see him asking out.
Yeah.
That is 100% the play, and why getting new eyes into this management group has such big downtrodden or down the lineup results. That's who's keeping this together. I think that's exactly how you handle this situation moving forward.
Yep.
And if they don't like it and they sulk, send in those trade lists and maximize from there. That's more of a longer-term conversation, but I think Mike Friesen nails it on Connor and Scheifele there.
100% agreed.
So last player, Gabe Velarde. He's just signed $7.5 million for 6 years. There is no trade protection on his deal. You could send him anywhere. What is the play with one of my favorite gadget players in the NHL? What are we doing with Gabe Velarde?
Gabe's an interesting one because he's lucky enough that he gets to ride shotgun on that top line, so he gets a lot of the stats. He produces well himself in other spots too. We've seen him not off that line too often, but occasionally, so we know that he can do it. We know that he's not the problem in terms of not wanting to break up, what that line is. No trade protection makes it a really versatile piece that if somebody's coming in to come ask you for something, I feel like Gabe Velarde is a pretty nice piece if you're trying to shift the entire look of your roster, right? If you're really going for that big swing, he's something in a trade that I feel like would be a really nice piece that would be enticing for other teams, that give them that same versatility that we're getting out of them. So I don't know if I'm I'm not saying it because he's the problem, because we need to get rid of him because I don't like him or anything like that. It's just he's going to be giving you the most amount of value, the most amount of versatility to really have a shake-up when it comes to your forward group.
On YouTube, Gilbert Marion says, keep. He has great hands, good size, and is affordable. The Silver Scrub says, I think you can get a haul for Gabe. Elias McCracken says, love Velarde. Only guy who seems to give it every night is creative. Zero Ghost 8 says, I'm keeping Gabriel as a monument to the trade forever, or the PLD trade forever. Jelly D Bean says, solid middle to top 6 piece you could flip for some good return. And Mike Friesen says, trade. Using Gustav Nyquist's parking spot, move him. Choices TK says, with his injury history, if you can get a good offer, I would move him. Here's where I'm at with Gabe Velarde. If you're trying to retool this, you absolutely have to find a second center up the middle of the ice or a top pairing right-handed D. Gabe Velarde is the exact type of player that you parlay into that as the bigger piece leading a deal like that. If you want to change what this organization's lineup card looks like in a meaningful way, it has to be Gabe as part of that package. I think, and this is another guy that just signed, I think when you look at the totality of it, I do wonder about that deal as it gets into his 30s with his injury history. I think he has a lot of shine from riding shotgun with the big guys, but I do think he is more limited than a driver of team success. So if you could parlay his long-term money into a real driver, into the middle of the lineup or the back end of the lineup, I think you have to absolutely be looking like that and almost doing the reverse of the PLD trade.
Yep, totally agree.
This one's clearly debatable and understandable well. I like Gabe Vilardi. I just think from an asset perspective, you got to be having these conversations. B. Vardel says, hot take. I don't think a lot of teams would be willing to give up much for Vilardi. He says he'd have to be in a package. Yeah, by himself, I doubt he'd get the Jets a good return. I do agree with that. I think he has to be the headlining piece of a package to really see a lineup changing swing.
Yes.
Over on YouTube, Caitlin Doucette says, keep him for now. He's young enough and has enough term where you could hold him and see where the retool is looking after 2 years and still get value. The thing there, I think he has to be a part of that retool and turning into an actual driving piece for the Jets that they're missing. I don't know where you're going to get that kind of talent without moving. Like the reality we got to come to here, if we're not willing to move a core piece in Winnipeg, you're going to get a lot more of the same on the decline moving forward. There's going to be having to do some hard things, and Gabe could be part of that.
Yep, absolutely.
The Silver Scrub says, got to keep the trade tree going, right? Tony Villari says, keep the Italian. Matt Rothman says, Gabe, I think it is good for now, but I'd have a tight leash on him because of his profile and injury history. Could potentially lead to regression at some point. T. Will says, this isn't an ego play for Jets management. They're trying to keep these guys because they were able to sign them for much cheaper than anyone on the open market. I don't buy that, by the way. And Chevy genuinely thinks he has something. I don't think most of those deals are cheaper than what would have happened on the market.
No.
Frosty Winnipeg says, we haven't seen the best of Gabe Vilardi yet, in my honest opinion. T. Will says, oh my God, there is no retool here. For a proper retool, you need some guys coming up in the holes to fill holes. We don't have those guys. You need so many pieces. It's not practical. It's a rebuild. And T. Will, you get it. I see it. They're never going to embrace that. They're going to try and retool for next year before getting to that reality. But you're 100% correct. And Gilbert Merriman points out, so we've traded 75% of the team. Hey, we haven't traded anyone. We've just discussed the ideas that you could get out of this. And at the end of the day, would it really be that bad if you traded 75% of the 32nd place NHL hockey team?
Right.
If we're looking at it objectively. And Choices TK points out, the Ducks have tons of assets and they're going to be looking to make a splash after being bad for so long. I would be calling. That's a great target for a Gabe Vilardi thing if you want to go the younger assets that might develop into a 2C or defenseman. I like that from Choices. That's the great target. But this show's been long. This season's been long. We appreciate you all being here as we try and sort out all the problems and where the Winnipeg Jets can go to fix this. Hopefully 2026 brings us a new general manager and Chipman wakes up from his coma. He is allowed to divorce a guy like that. That is ruining his project. We'll see where this all goes. We'll be back tomorrow night after the Jets blow one to the Toronto Maple Leafs on January 1st. Thank you for being here. This was a ton of fun. I hope everyone has a great New Year's. And we'll be back in less than 24 hours here.
Right on. Good night, everybody, and Happy New Year's.